This is the VoiceOver Marketing Podcast, episode number 21.
If we don't catch him soon, somebody else is going to die.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the VoiceOver Marketing Podcast. My name is John Melly, and this is the podcast dedicated to teaching in-depth and advanced marketing strategies for people in the voiceover and audio production professions. My goal is to help you make more money by showing you ways to leverage your time, charge more for your talents, and allow you to spend more time doing the things you want to do in your life. Hey there, it's John. Welcome to this episode. Thanks for spending some time with me today. I really do appreciate it. Our special guest today is Harry Legg, and in a few minutes I'll take you over to that interview that we had with Harry. And that came as a result of episode 19, where I talked about using the power of your personal story to market your business. But first, I just want to say that the number of downloads for the VoiceOver Marketing Podcast is 11,794 downloads as of this recording. And I just want to thank you very, very much for your interest in the content, all your wonderful feedback and comments, and sharing it with your friends and colleagues in the voiceover and audio production businesses. I also want to thank a couple of folks who have recently joined the VoiceOver Marketing Podcast group on Facebook. A big shout out to R.D. Pace, who works at Automatic Thought, and also Rudy Gaskins, who's the Chief Creative Officer at Push Creative Incorporated. And actually, I just finished interviewing Rudy for an upcoming episode of the podcast. We're going to talk about how he's been working on the creation of the Society of Voice Arts and Sciences, and also the Voice Arts Awards, and the 5th annual production of That's VoiceOver, along with a whole bunch of other topics. It was just a great conversation. That will be coming out next week, and so I look forward to sharing that with you. If you know of anyone who would be interested in joining the VoiceOver Marketing Podcast group on Facebook, or if you're not part of that group already, just go to Facebook and search VoiceOver Marketing Podcast and request to join the group. Before we dive into the content, I just want to invite everybody to attend this webinar that I'm going to be giving for voiceoverextra.com. John Florian at VoiceOver Extra graciously invited me to put together a webinar, and the topic and the title of the webinar is How to Increase Your Rates and Why You Need to Do This, and How to Get Paid in Advance of Doing the Work, or at least getting a hefty deposit. That's going to happen on July 9th. Anybody who registers for the webinar is going to get a full recording of the webinar, both audio and video. Registration fee is only $49. The early bird registration window has passed, but it's only $49. That's less than what you'd spend on takeout. And what I'm going to share with you is worth many times that investment. And as an added bonus, for everybody who signs up by midnight U.S. Eastern Time on June 30th, I'm going to give you a template of the document I use to get paid up front that you'll be able to customize for your voiceover business. Now, that's a $75 value. So you recoup your investment right away, and it's yours free if you register by midnight Eastern Time, U.S. on June 30th. You're definitely going to want to have this. It eliminates chasing clients around for money and all that. And also, for anyone who's already registered, I'll be making that available to you too, so don't worry, you're not going to miss anything. We'll make sure that you get that as well. So to register, just go to voiceovermarketingpodcast.com, episode 21, and click the big register here for the webinar link. You can't miss it. Do it before midnight U.S. Eastern Time on June 30th, and you'll get that template that I'm talking about. I'm really excited to be doing that webinar for voiceoverextra.com. And this episode is sponsored by voiceoverextra.com. You know, when you want voiceover training, you want news, how-to articles, upcoming events, and a huge directory of industry people and resources, all you got to do is go to voiceoverextra.com. That's voiceover, the letter X, TRA.com. It's a daily resource for voiceover success, and it's all free. Just see for yourself. Go to voiceoverextra.com. That's voiceoverextra.com. You can check it out and sign up for a free subscription today. Okay, so moving on. 2 episodes ago, episode 19, I shared with you the power of using your personal story as a marketing tool. And it's been fascinating. I hesitated on publishing that episode. For some reason, I struggled with getting my thoughts together. And after recording it 3 times, I said, you know what? Just publish it. Get it out there. And even though I hesitated sending it out, it's been an extremely popular episode. That's episode 19. And your feedback's been fantastic. I want to give out a special shout out to Debbie Feldman, who sent me her story. And Debbie's been doing this voiceover thing for decades, or she's been working toward it for decades. And Debbie, the thing that I came away with from reading your story, and thank you so much for taking the time to share it with me. I really want you to know that means an awful lot to me that you would do it. She went to the website, to voiceovermarketingpodcast.com, and she took advantage of the opportunity to download my story. It was a free download. And if you go to, I'm making this link available too. It's absolutely free. If you go to episode 21, voiceovermarketingpodcast.com, you'll see a link to a page on my website. Just enter your name and email address, and I'll email you a free copy of the marketing piece that I use. It's an autoresponder, so you'll get an email right away from me, and you can download it right away. And Debbie went ahead and did that, and she used it as an outline to write her story. And Debbie, the thing that I came away with from your story was the word persistence. She started in the 60s and 70s, back when women weren't DJs. They weren't in radio. They weren't announcers. It was very difficult for women to get into that industry, but she kept at it. She was doing secretarial work, but then she asserted herself and she said, hey, I could write some promos. And so she was writing promos for the radio shows and other duties. And she was writing promos for Willard Scott on NBC and David Brinkley and other local news people. And then she moved to Florida. And now she's got a business that she's doing radio and television commercials. She's doing e-learning projects and audio for websites and messages on hold, where she writes the script, she voices it, and she puts licensed music in the background, and she does the teleprompts and all that. But she's built a voiceover business. So, Debbie, congratulations to you on your persistence. And the other thing that she did, and this was so nice, is she told me that she babysits her grandchildren a couple of days a week, and she sent me a picture of Miss Brooke, her granddaughter, and she's absolutely adorable. So this is the fun part of the podcast. Is I'm hearing from people all around the United States and Canada and Australia and India and Europe, all around the world, and it is so fun. I am having an absolute blast doing this podcast. So anyway, the other thing that happened as a result of the power of story, using your story as a marketing tool to grow your voiceover business, is I referenced a video that Harry Legg put up in the Facebook group, and it was a video of his story of getting started in voiceovers. And Harry and I started communicating on Facebook, and we said, hey, let's do an interview. So I have interviewed Harry, and so you know what? Let's take a quick break and go have a conversation with Harry Legg. Well, welcome back. As I mentioned in the first part of the program, my guest today is Harry Legg. And yes, Harry Legg is his real name. And people ask him, what were your parents thinking? Well, of course, the name works well for the entertainment business. You can't forget it. And let me tell you a little bit about Harry's background before we talk with Harry. His career has taken him to radio stations, recording studios, and even a record label. And he moved from his hometown of Cleveland to work in over a half dozen cities, including the top 3 markets of Chicago, Los Angeles, and New York City. And besides voiceovers, Harry's an accomplished air talent, having worked on air at stations like Kiss FM in Los Angeles, Kiss in Chicago, and his awards include the New York City Achievement in Radio Creative Services Director of the Year Award for his work at WKTU, and a nomination for Billboard's Rhythmic APD Music Director of the Year while at Energy in Chicago. And Harry is now the voice of the NBC Sports Radio Network and currently works out of his studio in suburban New York City. and besides stations here in the United States. And Harry, I think we've got listeners all around the world. So folks, listen carefully because I'm probably going to mention your country or your city. He's got stations in Australia, Austria, Belgium, Brazil, Canada, Cairo, Cape Town, Cyprus, Hungary, Jakarta, Johannesburg, Jordan, Malta, Singapore, Sri Lanka, Tasmanian, Trinidad, and Tobago. And how do you say that last one, Harry?
Valdezare.
Valdezare, that's what I thought it was. And Harry's other passion is martial arts, and he currently trains at Body Mind Studios in Kung Fu, Tai Chi, Aikido, and a whole bunch more I can't even pronounce. But Harry, basically, he's nobody to mess around with.
Oh, man.
In voiceover or in martial arts. But we actually had a conversation several months ago about Krav Maga. I don't know if you recall that.
I do, yeah. Are you doing that?
A little bit. You know, I'm working with a trainer on a whole bunch of. I started doing a lot of stuff in kettlebells, Russian kettlebells, and he's also very fluent in a number of martial arts as well. And so he's teaching me some stuff, and it's really fun. It's a lot of fun.
It's supposed to be, yeah.
Yeah. Well, my concern was always getting a pop in the mouth. And, coming into work with a fat lip and sounding like this. And so I've always been a little hesitant to do it. But if you take the right precautions,
Yeah, you take the right precautions, and you trust the people that you're working with. And you do know that at any point in time some accident can happen, and, oh, crap, quick trip to the dentist.
Right.
So.
Well, thank you very much for agreeing to come on the podcast and spending some time with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Sure. This kind of all came about as a result of the video that you shared in the Voiceover Marketing podcast group on Facebook, and that was a great video, and a lot of people looked at it and commented on it and really enjoyed that episode. And so talk to us about the Harry Legg thing and how you've used it in your branding. I saw some business cards you showed on Facebook, but talk to us how you're using that.
The business card is really the only thing where I've overtly used it other than just putting my name out there. It's kind of funny. The first 7 years of my career, I was given by a program director a fake name to use, Scott James. So anyone from Cleveland Radio and Columbus who, when I first went to Rochester early in my career, may remember me as Scott James, which is so weird. And when I got to Rochester, I was on an amazing morning show, the Brother Wee's Morning Circus. This is back in the double-digit rating days, and he does a type of morning show where you live your life on the air. If you're a part of that show. And he says live on air, Scott, I hear your real name's Harry Legg. Get out your ID. And so on the air, I get out my driver's license. He's like, what the heck is wrong with you using this stupid generic Scott James DJ fake name when you got the best name? And he goes, from now on, you're Harry Legg.
Awesome.
And I'm like, he did me a favor. So, and it's just, and that's the thing, people assume it's fake, but the real first name's Harold. But,
sure.
So Harry Legg, and it's just made it easy for people to remember me, and it wasn't until recently that, there's another thing you have to get over when you have a name like this is in school. Yeah. If we all rewind to grade school and high school, you don't want a name that people are going to make fun of you for. So when I got to high school, I quickly changed it to Hal. Like if I say Hal, no one is going to think Harry. Yeah. And that actually worked, So, but anyway, so it takes you a while to get over and have the self-confidence and use your real name when it's funky like that and prone to so many, jokes.
Oh, yeah. I got Smelly Melly.
Well, yeah, there you go. Of course. So, and I got Harry every other body part. So,
okay.
So anyways, but it wasn't until recently that one of my managers said to me, you should get business cards made in the shape of a Harry Legg and get them die cut. And I'm like, that's brilliant. Why didn't I think of that like decades ago? But
sure, yeah.
But that's the only way I've used it graphically.
But your bio that you sent over before the interview, it's like, and yes, that is his real name. So you've built a bit of a story around your name.
That is true. That
Yeah.
is true. Because you can't help being asked, about your name when it's crazy like that.
Yeah.
So
That's fun. So talk to me a little bit about that video that you shared, your story, how you got into voiceovers, transitioning from radio into voiceovers. Talk to us how that idea for the video came about and why you did it.
I did it because there's a company that I do some work for that asked a number of their voice talents to do a little video giving their story. They were going to put it on their website, and it would help attract primarily new people wanting to get into the business, hearing other people's stories. And they originally said, just use your iPhone or a simple thing. It doesn't have to be elaborate. And I've got a friend right down the street who does video for a living and has a full-fledged studio. And I'm like, well, the heck with that. I'm not going to just put myself on my iPhone. I'm going to go down the street to my friend's studio and do it a little more professionally. And when I made it, and I went overtime. They asked for just a few minutes, and I think it was like 6 minutes long. But after I made it, I said, wow, I hadn't even thought of how this could serve a higher purpose for me. Putting it everywhere on social media, putting it on my own website, sending it to clients or potential clients. And like you mentioned in some of your writing on your site, that this helps serve to market you when that wasn't the original intent.
Okay.
But people become comfortable with you. They know your story. And one of the things that I did love getting into in the video was how radio is a bad word in the voiceover industry.
Yeah.
And I've had to explain that, and I'm sure you've probably been in this situation too, where we've got a lot of friends in radio, and because they're behind the mic, they think, hey, I should do voiceover. And while they're correct in that regard, they have a head start, they're not always in touch, though, with the reality of what voiceover is like on a daily basis in a radio environment versus the agency world.
Right.
So it's been an education process, which I had to go through, 14, 15 years ago when I moved to L.A. And as I said in the video, somebody told me to take voiceover classes, and I'm like, what? I've been doing this for a couple decades. I just came from Chicago, and he's telling me to take voiceover classes. But, wow, I learned real quick that was the best advice I could ever have gotten.
It really is amazing. It's funny that you say it. I have not really been a DJ. I've done board ops and stuff like that, but I've always been on the production side of things, and I've always considered myself more of a voice actor who works at a radio station. And I've kind of positioned myself that way. And I never really wanted to be. I thought I wanted to be a DJ. But then I found out what they do and what they don't do. And I wanted more of a creative process. So I went the production route and have been very fortunate to be able to really carve a niche in this market and elsewhere. But when you go to a workshop and you're working with professional voice actors and you hear them work and you go, oh, wow, I do have so much more to learn.
Yeah, there's so much more natural and easygoing. There's not that push or that forced voice. That is used. Hey, here's Lady Gaga, Kiss FM, I'm pushing my voice. There's none of that.
I also think part of it is that the copy that you're working with, for the most part, when you get into these recording studios, the copy's been massaged and worked over. And there's times when you're rewriting the copy in the recording studio as well. Right. But it's got a different approach to it rather than when you're at a radio station. A lot of times it comes in that the salesperson's written it and they're trying to put together 10 proposals and set up appointments with clients. So the copy becomes kind of an afterthought, and they give you a minute and a half's worth of copy that they want to squeeze into 60 seconds or 30 seconds or whatever. So you're trying to figure out, okay, how can I get a message across?
Yeah, well, and generally, the copy in an agency situation is usually way better than I've had a number of friends that would send me their demos of stuff that they did at their radio station that they want to use as a voiceover demo. And when you hear things like, hey, we'll be down at the U.S. Cellular store at the local mall, and our prize patrol will help you spin the prize wheel, and, like, whoa, no. You can't. That's going up against somebody that's voicing an ad for Lexus or Toyota or Target or Macy's, and you're pumping out the jams at the local mall, spin the prize wheel. That's not a voiceover demo, and it takes a real readjustment for some radio people to get that and to understand. So I'm really big on explaining that to my friends whenever they call and they want to do this. I'm like, okay, we got to have the conversation now.
Yeah. That's actually a great subject that you're bringing up in terms of the competition and what you're up against. Because I have people that come to me, they want, hey, how do I get into this? And, you have the conversation, and then if they want to pursue it a little bit, you have to remind them of who they are up against. How do you help somebody go through that mental reset, like you just mentioned? You're not doing the pumping up the jams. You are against the people who are doing the Lexus commercials and all that kind of stuff. Well,
I think that the conversation that I've kind of gotten down pat for that is usually about a half hour, and it's a reality check for those that are in radio, and really explaining so that they can see or hear what they're up against. I always send people, say, if you want to hear the top people in the biz, go to, I believe off the top of my head, it's voicebank.net.
Yeah.
And go through all the agency reels on there. It's free. Anyone can log on and listen to what the people at Tischerman and William Morris and so on are doing. And then listen to your demo from the radio station that you just had me listen to and be real about it. And then inevitably, for a moment, they may get a little deflated. But I'm like, but no, you take the next step. This is not over. Did you get to where you are in your radio career overnight? Absolutely not. You probably started running the ethnic shows on a Sunday morning and, board opping overnight. And, now look where you are. So it's the same thing. And I go get coaching. And then it's up to them if they want to put in the work. Everyone thinks, well, not everyone, but a lot of people think it's easy, it's quick. What do I need to do? I'm ready to go. Yeah. Well, no, you're really not.
No. Yeah.
So it's that reality check. And I'm happy to say a number of my friends have gone the distance and have done what they need to do. And then some like, okay, it's a lot of work and I don't have time or, whatever. But that happens with everyone and everything in life.
I guess it's a matter of really comes down to your priorities. How important is this to you to go after that?
Yes. And I looked at it as a necessity due to, and I don't want to get all negative on radio, which is super easy to do, and inevitably probably will a little bit. But
that's fine.
When I was at KTU in New York City, I was at, that's a legendary radio station, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the type of job that could last for ages, decades. I mean, look at how long Dave Fox has been at our sister station there, Z100.
Right.
And some of the other production people have been there forever. Just my luck, there was a management change at KTU after the whole Whoopi Goldberg thing, and they went, I don't want to get into all that. But, but anyway, and I found myself out of a gig after working at KTU in New York. And I'm like, whoa. Do I want to move to another market again for the 9th time? And when is this going to stop?
Right.
So fortunately, while I was at KTU, I begun ramping up the voiceover thing. And I had it just barely big enough that when I lost the gig, I could eke by. It was really scary and really tight for a while. But then talk about forcing you to put all your focus on that. I have a good number of friends that are in the biz right now, and they're not 20-some-year-olds or even 30. And it's like every time you lose your job due to some typical BS that happens in the biz, it's that much harder for you to find another gig because of the way the business is now. And let's face it, because of age. In many cases, they want to hire someone a little younger because they're cheaper. They can ride them harder. They don't have the same temperament that an older person has. It doesn't want to put up with your BS. Right. And I'm telling these friends, look, it doesn't matter what it is you do, but while you have that gig, please work on something substantially on the side to set yourself up.
Yeah.
Because what happens? You're 50. Let's just say you're 50 years old, and that gig at that hot AC station blows up.
Right.
Whew, God, good luck. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. I mean, I've said before, it's the worst number in any business is 1. And you view yourself as a business of John Melly Inc. or Harry Legg Inc. If you only have one source of income, you got to scramble and talk about pressure.
It's not easy.
No, and so you actually said something that was kind of interesting because we have a lot of listeners to this podcast who are in transition right now for whatever reason. Some of them have retired and they're pursuing a passion that they've had for a number of years, or they've lost a job and they for any number of reasons and circumstances, and they want to push this voiceover thing. What was it you said a moment ago that you were really motivated? It was a necessity. What did you do to draw from within and make that push to create this career that you have? What was it that you draw strength from?
That I drew strength from? Well, I drew strength from my martial arts training, but that's a whole separate thing.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, it gives you a lot of mental strength. When you can, physical training translates to mental strength and training. So if anyone, and it doesn't have to be martial arts, it's if you're, doing what you're doing with kettlebells or just going to the gym, but you're not going there for social hour, you're really working out,
Right.
Yeah. But what I think I'd rather get at in kind of in the line of this question is when I was forced to make something happen, as far as I knew, I was leaving no stone unturned. I would scour Craigslist for voiceover gigs, which people are like, what? You're not going to... Well, I would call them the diamonds in the rough. In fact, to this day, because it's a few years old right now, but the leading piece on my commercial voiceover demo is for Mountain Dew. And it was this big theatrical piece with Forrest Whitaker. It played in movie theaters. And I got that gig off Craigslist because there was a very good production company here in the New York City area that needed to find a voice for it, and they weren't aware of typical casting at the time, or I don't know the exact reasons. Maybe they put the net out for voices elsewhere. But they also put one on Craigslist of all places. So I sent them my demo, and this isn't to sound egotistical. This is to be realistic. The average stuff that people get, if you're seeking a voice off of Craigslist, you are going to go through a mound of people that aren't ready. You know what I mean? When someone like you or me or say some of our radio friends would apply to something on Craigslist for voiceover, we're going to blow a lot of people out of the water. We're going to really stick out. So while I'm not sitting here going, hey, everyone needs to get on Craigslist, it shouldn't be sneered at. So I looked there, I wrote and sent emails and demo links to every little video production company I could find anywhere around. And I reached out to, and really, as we know, it doesn't matter geographic proximity, but I also think that there's a comfortability like, hey, I'm just 45 minutes away from you in New York or in upstate, or you're in Philly. Oh, I could be there in an hour and a half, no problem. So I went for every little video production house and introduced myself, and I got business from that.
Cool.
Yeah. So, I just did everything I could imagine to find work, and it snowballs.
So I love the geographic thing because I've had a similar experience with some of the voiceover sites. Years ago, somebody said, well, what should you do? And I said, you know what? Make sure you put where you are, because like you just said, there is something about, even if they never come to the studio, there's this comfort level, or they're just right down the road, or if I need to meet them, I can.
Yes.
It's not going to be a hard thing for me to do. So I love that tip. What else did you do?
I took additional coaching. I took more workshops. What else? You just put out the word to all of your friends. And, one of my niches is voicing radio and TV stations, primarily radio. I haven't gone quite as far as I'd like to in TV yet, but I'm making some good inroads there. And one of the things that was really kind of neat for me, and I couldn't tell you exactly how it happened, except that it's word of mouth, luck, things snowballing, is the level of international work that I have.
Yeah, that's great.
That all started while I was at KTU. I was listening to stations online. Because let's face it, no, I mean, if I was at KTU purely for doing imaging, I didn't have to do the commercial side, although I've done that plenty in my career.
Sure.
And nobody is producing sweepers and promos 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. I mean, there's a fair amount of downtime throughout your day when you have that type of gig. But, you learn to use it productively. So I would listen to other stations online to be inspired, to hear what's going on. And I came across Today FM in Sydney, Australia, which would be the equivalent of Z100 or KISS FM here in the States. And I was just blown away by something I heard. It's been so many years ago, I don't remember what it was. And I'm like, I wonder who made that? Who's the creative director or whatever? And I think I called the station, or I went on the website or did some research. And I ended up, the creative director at the time, his name was Casey Baker, and I left him a voicemail message. And I just said, hey, Casey, my name's Harry. You don't know me, but I just heard your promo on the air online. I work at WKTU in New York, and I was blown away. Whoa, that is awesome. And I just wanted to reach out and say hello. And if you ever want to say hi, here's my email and phone number. And it was, I don't know, maybe a few weeks later, he called me, and we had a great conversation. And then before you know it, it's, hey, mate, how'd you like to voice a promo for us?
Yeah.
And kaboom, that's where it started. And before you know it, I'm on Today FM in Sydney, and then it blossomed to 12 other markets in Australia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, talk about lucky. And then kind of like, here we look at some of the biggest stations in the nation for inspiration or to see what they're doing and blah, blah, blah. Well, a lot of, I guess, people in radio on the other side of the world will look to the big stations in Australia, like Today FM, or the stations in Brisbane or Melbourne. Mm-hmm. And so it got, hey, who's that American English voice you've got on?
Oh, wow.
What? And just boom, boom, boom. Before you know it, I'm getting calls from, really, you're in Sri Lanka? Oh, yeah, sure, okay. Yeah, so, and it just, and it continues to this day. Really interesting. So, and again, that was just from reaching out. And expecting nothing.
Yeah.
I did not reach out with an agenda, which is kind of what I talked about at the end of my video when I said, hey, when you're networking, do it organically. Don't do it where, like, you can tell you're only talking to someone because you think they can do something for you. I hate that.
Right.
Just be real,
And you paid this guy a compliment from around the world, and who's not going to like that?
Absolutely. Yeah, of course. And it was sincere. So.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, a couple of things impressed me about what you've just shared is that even though you've got the downtime, you mentioned using it constructively, and listening to the radio for you is research. And it's, we listen to different things differently than a lot of other folks, but you're taking the time to research and look around, and you also talk about getting the training. And I'm really happy to hear you say that you've gone for coaching, and I'm sure some of it's been just colleague to colleague helping, but you've probably also invested money to take the workshops. And there's a lot of great information for free on the web and in the forums and stuff like that. And a lot of people say, oh, you can get all this stuff for free and everything like that. But there's also a real value, in my opinion, and obviously I think you would agree with this. There's value in investing in your education from people who can get you there faster.
Yes, that's key. They can get you there faster. And also, you may not know all the things that you should be learning just from randomly going online, getting tidbits for free here and there. But you sit down with a very competent coach in the business that's been there and done it all, and they can assess you. And they'll look at your website, they'll hear your demos, they'll get you live behind that mic and put you through your paces. And there's nothing like that. You can't get that for free online. I don't think you can. And the other, maybe you can have people listen to your demos and things like that, but it's harder to get them to be completely honest, too, than face-to-face,
Right.
There's another thing that I want to mention, and I don't want this to be taken negatively. It's also, you start taking workshops from the right coaches, from people that really have it going on, that are successful. you're also kind of buying your way in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because guess what? Some of these coaches are casting directors.
Right.
Or they know people that are casting directors, and they will come to them and say, hey, I need a guy or a girl for this. You got anyone? And they will send out to the students that they have worked with that they know are worthy or capable. And you end up getting work from that. So you can't discount that either.
No.
There's nothing wrong with that. That's the way the world works.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more. Somebody mentioned, and you just sort of alluded to it earlier, there are like 3 or 4 different levels of knowledge. There's the competent, they know what they know. Then there's the incompetent, and that they're competent enough to know that they don't know what they don't know, but they have to go find out. And then there's the incompetent, that they have no idea what they're missing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's not a put down. It's just like, right. I mean, I'm an incompetent in cars. I don't know anything about cars. And that's why I take it to a mechanic because, I don't know what I don't know.
Exactly.
I got a question a while ago, the coaching thing. And so you can speak to that because you also coach in martial arts as well.
Yeah.
People want to know a good way to find a coach that they can work with. What do you think people should look for in a coach?
I think, well, first of all, ask around.
Mm-hmm.
Ask some other people that have been doing it for a while who they have used. And where are you in the scheme of things professionally? Someone who is a raw beginner, even if you're working at a radio station but you've never done this, you may need someone that's better at handling that than someone who just wants to take the people who are really achieving really well at this point and tweak them to even greater heights.
Mm-hmm.
And that type of coach may cost way too much. I think you clearly look at their website, clearly look at their credentials. If they're also a voiceover artist themselves, listen to their demos, see what they've done, and see how they describe their classes. The coach that I originally found posed some questions on his website, being a radio guy, that made me go, ooh, I don't know any of this. What's your signature voice?
Yeah.
What are all the protocols for a studio session? I'm used to just walking in the production studio in a radio station and having my way. What's his protocols in the studio? I've never dealt with casting directors or, the director in a session. And wow. So he posed all these questions, and you were going to learn all this.
That's great.
I think those are some of the things you need to look at. I think one of the most important things, though, is word of mouth and talking to some other people and seeing who they recommend, things of that sort.
No, that's great. That's really good ideas there. I'm looking at the clock. I don't want to take up too much more of your time.
Okay.
Do you have anything that you want to share that really comes to the top of your head here about some really good ideas for people to market their business or grow their skills?
Number one is networking. I am just so big on that. Network like crazy. Talk to everyone you can. Reach out everywhere you can. If you're already doing voiceover, get involved with your local chamber of commerce. You'll be surprised the people you meet. And, my company's doing a video and we need a corporate narration. I mean, you just never know where work is going to come from.
Right.
So seize all of those opportunities. Definitely get coaching and training. Listen to other people's work. I'll go on VoiceBank and listen because I do radio, as we talked about earlier. I'm listening to other stations, primarily around the world. I think we all know what American radio sounds like. So let's hear the creativity and the different stuff that people are doing elsewhere. And that is a lot of fun. And hearing the music programming is fun, too. The playlists are so narrow here.
Yeah.
You listen overseas, and they cover a wide gamut. It's just a whole different world.
It really is.
In many cases, yeah. So networking, coaching, don't leave any stone unturned. I think those are the basic keys. And as you mentioned, don't be afraid to invest.
Another question that relates to fear, but it's a different kind of fear. I'll get comments from folks of, I'm uncomfortable promoting myself. I'm uncomfortable marketing myself. What do you say to that?
Well, I understand that because I am not, and some people are,
yeah.
But I am not the sales type.
Yeah.
In fact, sales types kind of turn me off.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I feel the same way.
Turn that down about 5 notches, please. You want to say to some people. And when they're always on.
Yeah.
You can be on without being on. You can be real and sincere and just not have that, the negative connotations of salespeople, which we don't need to go into, but I think we all know that, just that sliminess, greasiness, that phoniness. Don't do that. So if you're not you don't have to be aggressive. There's no aggression in sending an email. Hey, so-and-so video production company, I just want to introduce myself. We're only 30 miles away, and, I looked on your website, love what you guys do. If you're ever looking for, a voiceover person, keep me in mind. Here's my demo. If there's anything I can do for you. That doesn't take any aggression. That doesn't take anything uncomfortable. That doesn't take being able to work the room, so to speak.
Right.
So I don't find that being hard at all. And if you can just manage to get in conversations with people, I know here in New York, I'm sure it probably goes on in some other cities, we have voiceover mixers. And I have mixed feelings about those because, oh dear, I'm going to get killed for saying this maybe by some, but there's a part of me that's like, oh God, I'm going to be in a room with a bunch of other voiceover people. Oh, just shoot me.
Yeah.
There's some of that.
Yep.
But then you put that aside. You're like, hey, I'm going to just have legitimate conversations with people, and you make some connections, and you do eventually get into a cool conversation with someone. Hey, how do you handle this? Or what have you done with that? Or and you do inevitably come back with some ideas. So, but again, you don't have to learn to work the room. If you're a complete wallflower, you're going to have a little problem in that situation. But you don't have to be a sales geek in order to market yourself. You just got to be smart and find the right places. It doesn't take, now there are things that take money. You want to advertise on Facebook. If you want to advertise, if you're doing radio, you want to advertise on Joel Denver's All Access. Yeah, you need some money. But again, there shouldn't be anything uncomfortable about that.
The word that pops into my mind from what you just shared on that topic was authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that. Cool. I really like that. Well, Harry, this has been a lot of fun. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. If people want to reach out to you, is there a way for them to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Harry at harrylegg.com, and Legg is spelled with 2 G's. And my website's harrylegg.com, and there's contact info on there as well.
Oh, that's great. Well, Harry, this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you, John. Well, that's great.
Thank you.
Our program originates in the Boston studios. We hope you'll join us again. Until then, we bid you au revoir, keep your chin up, and the best of luck.
Well, that's it for this episode of the Voiceover Marketing Podcast. If you like this podcast, please subscribe to it at voiceovermarketingpodcast.com so you'll get notices of new episodes, and please share it with your friends and colleagues in the voiceover world. Also, it would be a huge help if you'd like this podcast and rate it on iTunes to help keep it near the top of the list. Feel free to share your comments and questions about this episode and future topics you'd like discussed at voiceovermarketingpodcast.com. And if you'd like more information on one-on-one coaching with me and mastermind group opportunities where we focus on growing your business, feel free to drop me a line at my cyber assistant's email address at mike@johnmelly.com. Thanks for listening. Now go out there and share your voice with the world.